The final hours of 2020 were electric. In Makati City, Metro Manila, the skyline glowed with anticipation. Inside the luxurious City Garden Grand Hotel, 23-year-old Christine Dassera smiled brightly as she clinked glasses with friends. The champagne fizzed, the music thumped, and the world felt, for one fleeting night, alive and full of promise. Christine was more than just a pretty face with an Instagram following. She was a flight attendant, graceful, vibrant, and full of ambition. A graduate of the University of the Philippines, she had a future as open as the sky she flew through. But on December 31st, 2020, she didn't have to think about any of that. This night was about letting go, about joy, about surviving a difficult year. She checked into room 2209 with 3 colleagues, all fellow flight attendants, and by midnight, the party was in full swing. More guests joined. Some friends, some acquaintances, others complete strangers. The group mingled, danced, drank. 11 men in total would eventually be connected to the gathering. But to Christine, it was just a celebration. No red flags. No warnings. Just another hotel party among industry friends. As the night wore on, Christine was seen laughing, sitting on the bed, sharing drinks, and at one point being helped to the bathroom. She seemed tipsy, but no one raised an alarm. Not yet. What no one knew was that these would be Christine's final hours alive. By dawn on January 1st, 2021, the celebration had turned cold and quiet. Christine's lifeless body would be found slumped in the bathtub, her skin pale, her pulse gone. The room, once alive with music and laughter, was now a scene of confusion, silence, and fear. When her friends rushed her to Makati Medical Center, doctors tried, but it was already too late. At 12:25 p.m., Christine Dassera was declared dead. The new year had barely begun, and already a bright life is gone. What followed would spiral into national headlines, public outrage, and legal chaos. But for now, as her mother received the devastating call and the world remained unaware, one question lingered in the air. What really happened inside room 2209? The first morning of 2021 broke with golden light stretching across the skyline of Makati City. The city stirred awake with quiet hope, new beginnings, fresh starts, clean slates. But inside room 2209 of the City Garden Grand Hotel, hope had already vanished. At approximately 10 a.m., Christine Dassera's friends found her unconscious, partially clothed, curled unnaturally inside the hotel room's bathtub. Her skin was cold, her lips pale, her body still. Panic took over. They lifted her out of the tub and attempted CPR, praying for any sign of life. But Christine was unresponsive. Time was slipping fast, and so was any chance of saving her. Rushed to Makati Medical Center, her friends carried her in, breathless and trembling, desperate for help. But within minutes, the doctor pronounced what they feared the most. Christine Ancilloan Dassera was dead. The time of death was 12:25 p.m., just hours after the new year began. Shock consumed the group. Some of them broke down in tears. Others grew silent, stunned. But the confusion spread far beyond the hospital walls. Why was she found like that? Why didn't anyone notice anything wrong sooner? Her body bore bruises, scratches, and signs of possible trauma. A ruptured aorta, later cited in the autopsy, would raise even more questions. Initial reports suggested the possibility of sexual assault. Police responded swiftly, declaring the case a rape slay almost immediately. The internet ignited. Social media exploded with outrage. Hashtags like #JusticeForChristine Dassera trended within hours. The public, fueled by grief and anger, demanded accountability. Who was in that room? What were they hiding? 11 men had attended the party. Several were her friends. A few claimed to have slept through the night. One said he last saw Christine passed out, assuming she was just drunk. But silence now carried a cost. As grief set into the Dassera family home and media vans parked outside the hotel, investigators began piecing together timelines, collecting CCTV footage, and seizing cell phones. The public had its villain. But was it the truth? Because what started as a night of music and laughter had now morphed into something far more sinister. And the mystery of what happened between midnight and morning was only beginning to unravel. Christine Dassera was not just dead. Her body told a story no one wanted to believe. As the doctors examined her remains, a disturbing pattern emerged. There were deep bruises along her thighs, scratches on her arms, and lacerations in intimate areas. The official medical report cited a ruptured aortic aneurysm as the cause of death, but to the human eye, something else had clearly happened. Something brutal. Something intentional. By January 2nd, just one day after her death, authorities classified the case as a rape slay. And with that, the headlines erupted. 11 men, 1 woman, 1 hotel room, 1 corpse. The police zeroed in on everyone who had been inside room 2209 that night. All 11 male companions, some flight attendants like Christine, others acquaintances from the same circle, were named publicly. Photos named social media accounts, all exposed to a furious public thirsting for answers. In the days that followed, 3 men were initially arrested and detained, while the others were summoned for questioning. The pressure mounted. At the center of it all was Sharon Dassera, Christine's mother. Grief-stricken and trembling through media interviews, she begged the public for help and demanded justice for her daughter. Her voice broke as she described Christine as a kind, God-fearing, and respectful young woman. "My daughter didn't deserve to die this way," she said through tears. But things weren't so simple. While some friends claimed that Christine had too much to drink and passed out, others gave inconsistent accounts. One said she'd been asleep. Another said he found her unconscious, but thought she'd recover. None could explain the injuries clearly. None could answer the same question. How did Christine end up in that tub, bruised and broken, while the party continued around her? Public suspicion turned into fury. Online detectives combed through party videos, TikTok clips, and blurry photos from that night. Conspiracies bloomed. Some accused cover-ups. Others hinted at a ritualistic killing. The room was full of people, but somehow no one saw anything. As protests sparked and Christine's story reached headlines across Asia and beyond, the tragedy of one young woman's death became a firestorm. But beneath all the noise and rage, one truth remained. Christine didn't make it out of room 2209 alive, and someone knew exactly why. It didn't take long for Christine Dassera's name to become a lightning rod. By January 3, 2021, just 2 days after her death, the story had exploded across the Philippines and spilled into international news outlets. Headlines were stark and salacious. Flight attendant raped and killed during New Year party. 11 men under investigation in death of young woman. A rape slay? Or something more sinister? Social media took the lead. On Facebook and Twitter, users shared photos of Christine, smiling in her flight attendant uniform, laughing with friends, posing in bikinis. Alongside them were screenshots of her alleged companions, names and faces blasted out with captions like rapists, justice for Christine, and monsters in room 2209. The hashtags began to trend. Hashtag justice for Christine. Hashtag stop rape culture. Hashtag protect women. But as the online rage spread like wildfire, facts began to blur. People speculated without evidence. Memes were made. TikToks were posted. Amateur sleuths dissected her autopsy report, argued over the timeline, and accused everyone from partygoers to the hotel staff of being part of a cover-up. The court of public opinion had made its ruling. Christine was a victim. The men were guilty. There was no room for nuance. The pressure on the authorities intensified. The Philippine National Police labeled the case a rape slay almost immediately, despite the autopsy being inconclusive at the time. 3 of the men were arrested and paraded before the cameras, branded by the media long before they were ever charged. But behind the scenes, contradictions were already forming. Some of the men came forward and claimed they were gay and had no sexual interest in Christine. Others pointed out that she had been drinking heavily and passed out at different points during the night. CCTV footage showed her laughing and walking on her own, entering room 2209 with the very people later accused of assaulting her. Still, the fire had already been lit. In the chaos, the Dassera family mourned their daughter under a microscope. Every gesture was captured. Every tear was analyzed. Every word they spoke became a headline. It was no longer just about Christine. It was about the narrative and whether the truth could survive it. Because in the digital age, once a story catches fire, the facts don't always matter. And for the men in room 2209, the world had already decided. Guilty until proven innocent. When the official autopsy report on Christine Dassler was released, it did not provide the closure many expected or demanded. According to the Philippine National Police's forensic pathologist, Christine had died of a ruptured aortic aneurysm. A bulging, weakened section of her artery had suddenly torn, flooding her body with blood. The death, they said, was natural. No foul play, no sexual assault, no homicide. But for the Dassler family and much of the public, the explanation didn't add up. "My daughter was perfectly healthy," said her mother, Sharon, in a tearful interview. "She was 23. She was vibrant. She was not sick." The family, stunned and angry, rejected the findings. They commissioned a second autopsy. The results were inconclusive. The bruises on Christine's legs, her lips, and her arms, visible in photos, raised too many questions. The presence of fluids in her body sparked more speculation. Online theories clashed with medical science. How could a natural death look so violent? Medical experts weighed in publicly. Some explained that an aortic aneurysm can be silent until it's fatal, and stress, alcohol, or drug use can trigger it, especially if it's undiagnosed. But others admitted that the external injuries should be investigated further, even if unrelated to the cause of death. The divide deepened. In the media, two stories were unfolding at once. One, a tragic medical incident. Christine had unknowingly carried a ticking time bomb inside her chest. The other, a possible cover-up cloaked in science, protecting the men in room 2209. The Philippine justice system stood between two powerful forces, the evidence and the emotional weight of public outrage. Protesters rallied. Advocates for women's safety demanded justice. Others urged caution, warning that a rush to judgment could destroy innocent lives. In court, no charges stuck. The Department of Justice eventually ruled that there was no evidence of rape or homicide, and the case was closed. But for many, especially Christine's grieving family, the ruling felt like a second death, this time of justice. The truth, whatever it was, now existed in two forms. The one written on paper in a coroner's office, and the one etched into the hearts of millions who still believed something darker happened that night. As headlines screamed rape slay, and Christine Dassler's face flooded every news feed in the Philippines, the men who spent New Year's Eve with her found themselves in a national spotlight no one could escape. Public outrage painted them as predators. But now they were ready to speak. One by one, the accused began to break their silence, not from behind bars, but on television, in interviews, and through legal counsel. "We didn't hurt Christine," one said, barely holding back tears. "We loved her." It turned out many of the men in room 2209 weren't strangers. Several were Christine's colleagues from her job as a flight attendant. Some were longtime friends. Others, notably, were gay men, openly so, and had been part of Christine's social circle for years. They described the night not as a trap or a setup, but as a celebration, a party among friends ringing in the new year. They drank, they danced, they laughed. They admitted Christine drank heavily, moved between rooms, and was found sleeping at different points throughout the night. But when she was found unresponsive the next morning, panic, not guilt, was what they felt. "She was our friend. If we had known something was wrong, we would have helped her," one said on national television. Still, public sentiment was unforgiving. Christine's body showed bruises and lacerations, and that was enough for many to believe the worst. The court of public opinion had delivered its verdict long before any real trial began. The phrase "justice for Christine" became a national cry, etched in posters, pinned to profiles, printed on T-shirts. The men became targets of hate, both online and in real life. Their families were harassed. They lost jobs. One man reportedly attempted suicide after being branded a rapist, without a single charge sticking in court. But through it all, They insisted on their innocence. "We didn't rape Christine. We didn't kill her. We were there, and we're mourning too," one of them said. Even as the Department of Justice dropped the charges due to lack of evidence, the men's names remained forever tied to a tragedy that may never be fully understood. For them, the legal nightmare may have ended, but the social stigma never really did. More than a year after Christine Dassera's death, the case that once ignited an entire nation crumbled quietly behind courtroom doors. What began as a supposed rape sleigh, an explosive mix of youth, beauty, and betrayal, was unraveling. The Makati prosecutor's office reviewed the evidence, including multiple autopsy reports, toxicology findings, surveillance footage, and conflicting statements. But what it didn't find was the most damning thing of all: proof beyond reasonable doubt. In April 2021, the initial charges of rape with homicide were dropped due to lack of probable cause. Later, in 2022, all remaining cases were officially dismissed. No convictions, no trials, just cold silence. The men once labeled as monsters walked free. For some, it was relief. For others, a reminder that being declared innocent by the court doesn't always make you innocent in the eyes of the public. Their names remained linked to the tragedy, their reputations permanently marred by the fury of viral judgment. The Philippine National Police, once confident they had cracked the case in record time, quietly retreated from the spotlight. Their early declarations of foul play and sexual assault were now under scrutiny themselves, criticized for rushing conclusions and fueling a media frenzy with little more than assumption. But in the quiet corners of the Dassera family's home, there was no sense of closure. Christine's mother, Sharon, refused to accept the final verdict. To her, Christine was not just her daughter. She was a bright, ambitious young woman with dreams of flying the world, a soul full of life that could never have ended so suddenly, so easily explained away. "She didn't just die in that room," her mother said. "Something happened. Someone did something." The official cause remained a ruptured aortic aneurysm, a rare but natural death. The bruises, authorities said, could be consistent with attempts to revive her, or accidental injury during intoxication. But for many, especially those who knew Christine's healthy lifestyle, that explanation would always feel incomplete. And so, the case faded, not into justice, not into resolution, but into unanswered questions. A young woman was buried, her name remembered, and the truth? Still out there, depending on who you believe. Christine Dassera's death didn't just shock a nation. It ignited fierce debates on justice, media influence, and the fragility of truth. Her story became a cautionary tale about how public opinion can rush to judgment, how gender and societal biases shape narratives, and how the demand for swift justice sometimes clashes with the slow, meticulous nature of the law. Her family continues to grieve the loss of a vibrant daughter taken too soon. The pain is compounded by the endless swirl of rumors and accusations, the court of social media condemning and defending with equal fervor. For them, the unanswered questions are an open wound, one that refuses to heal. The public remains deeply divided. Some hold tightly to the belief that Christine was the victim of a horrific crime, a young woman betrayed and abandoned by a broken system. Others accept the official medical findings, seeing her death as a tragic but natural event, a rare and cruel twist of fate. Her case serves as a stark reminder of how complex and fragile justice can be, how important it is to balance truth, evidence, and empathy. And it calls on us all to reflect. How quickly do we judge? How often do we consider the full story? And how do we honor the memories of those lost, whether through violence or misfortune? Christine's name lives on, not just in headlines, but in the hearts of those who loved her and the conversations she forced society to confront. As we remember Christine, we also remember the countless others caught in the gray areas between justice and tragedy, whose stories may never be fully told, but whose lives matter all the same. If you found Christine's story compelling, hit subscribe for more real, gripping true crime stories told with care and respect. Drop a comment below. What do you think really happened? And remember, every story has many sides. Stay safe, stay curious, and thank you for watching.